Hi, everybody. I'm Tony Hughes, and welcome to this CEO Sales Insight Show. So excited to be doing another episode this month. We've got an incredible person that we'll be having a conversation with today, Stephanie Christopher, who is the CEO of the Executive Connection. Just a few housekeeping things before we jump in. We're going out on LinkedIn Live. But if you go to the Sales IQ Global website, so that's salesiqglobal.com. If you go to the Sales IQ Global website and look under events, you can register for this, which will enable you to receive a copy of the recording. So you may be watching in LinkedIn Live, but if you'd like to be able to view this in the future and easily share it with other people, register at Sales IQ Global. Also, you'll notice that there's a comments section in LinkedIn Live, so feel free to type in any questions, and I'll make sure that I have a look at those comments or questions, and I'll ask Stephanie those questions on your behalf if we have time to get to them. The last thing here also is to really also thank the sponsors. So Trigger, Trigger.ai, that's TRIGGR.ai, so Trigger without the E, is a sales intelligence platform that really enables you to turn the internet into your pipeline or prospecting database. If you understand the ideal attributes of a customer and then the trigger events that can occur that are monitorable automatically on the web, they can do that for you and provide basically prospecting funnels so you can proactively create the right level of opportunity pipeline that you need. So let me just introduce Stephanie to you. She's been the CEO of the Executive Connection since 2014, but the Executive Connection has been around since 1986. Just absolutely amazing. They've got a global membership of more than 23,000 business people and leaders, both here locally in Australia and also through their global partner, Vistage. And they have amazing reach. They provide mentorship and access to the very best minds on the planet for leadership and growth. Stephanie and her work with the Executive Connection has enabled her to help literally thousands of businesses to prosper. So without any further ado, let me bring Stephanie into the conversation. Hi, Steph. I'm so excited to be having the conversation today. How are you?
Well, thank you, Tony, and it's lovely to see you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, just to kick off, would you mind just sharing with people a little bit more about your background and passion, and also about the Executive Connection, TEC as a business?
Sure. Well, actually, I have a quirky background, a clinical background that goes back a long time ago. My passion for years, since I moved into more of a consulting kind of arena, is about helping businesses to grow, helping identify talent in an organization, and fostering and mentoring and developing that talent. So seeing people flourish as well as leaders.
Wow, it's awesome. And where do you see the Executive Connection going in the next couple of years? You've obviously had to do a big pivot in the last 2 years with COVID.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, thanks, Tony. Well, it's interesting. So tech is all about adding high value perspectives to leaders so that leaders are actually learning or getting assistance in making decisions and all the things that are really tough for a leader. And they get that from peer advisory groups, from one-to-one mentoring, and from, as you said, access to knowledge and information and actionable insights from leading resources. So throughout the last 2 years, we've found that our core offering has been more important than ever. So that idea of a business leader who is fundamentally isolated. As a leader, you really don't have anyone to talk to about what you really need to get off your chest. And to be able to give leaders their tribe, to have a group of, success advocates who are really, really gunning for you without actually having absolute, skin in your business. So we found that works. Of course, we've had to pivot to digital 2 years ago this month. And we found that leaders have really responded to that flexibility, to that more ready availability. So it's allowed us to broaden our offering, so it's not just so reliant on a meeting once a month face to face.
Yeah. And Steph, obviously we've got a mixed audience today. We have CEOs and business leaders that are really looking for some insights on how they can improve the way that they're driving top line revenue growth. That's probably the most difficult thing for a leader to do, is to drive revenue growth. Anybody can cut costs.
Yeah.
But we've also got people in the audience today that are sellers that are really struggling to try and elevate their engagement as they try and sell. So we'll provide some insights for them also into how CEOs think. But you have an amazing perspective with the range of people and leaders that you work with. How do you think revenue generation has really changed in the last few years?
It was so interesting 2 years ago hearing small, mid-sized business owners and hired CEOs saying, you can't sell unless it's face to face. And I think, well, that's you know, you can't just sort of close down while all of this happens. And I think I actually think it's been good for the art and science of selling, the shift in the environment over the last 2 years, because I think that people have to get right back to the basics of what selling is about, what engagement with a potential or an existing customer looks like. And you can't rely on that thing that should have sort of moved on years ago of relationship selling. Of, you're my mate, I know you, I'll come over, let's have coffee, let's have lunch, let's whatever. And you can do that for a long time and not end up with any revenue growth as a result. I mean, even live events, even a way that people used to sell at live events, well, that disappeared for a while. It's just starting to come back now. So I think it was actually, it's been tough, and I think it shook a lot of people. But the business founders and CEOs I work with every day are reporting really strong sales and optimism about their top line growth. So it's absolutely possible. I think it's just getting back to the basics and getting that right.
Yeah, I really love that comment that you made a little earlier about people having their mates in business and relationships. And I used to jokingly call some sellers Sir Lunch-a-lot. It was all about just going out and entertaining people, and hoping people would buy just on the strength of the relationship. But obviously in the last 2 years, I guess all selling has become inside selling. We're trying to work out how do we sell from behind a screen in a way that drives engagement. And for everybody watching this, the real challenge for all of our salespeople, or for you as a seller, is how do you create the necessary level of value that funds your role, and build relationships based on earning the relationship and the value you provide, rather than just this disingenuous rapport building kind of friending strategy.
Well, I think of salespeople in a past life who'd come back for a meeting and say, they love me. They love me. And I say, well, of course they do. And what next?
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think are the biggest challenges for leaders? I mean, you obviously report to a board yourself. What are the biggest challenges for a leader in predictably driving profitable top line revenue growth today?
I think the biggest challenge for a leader is leading through others. And so that leads to the biggest challenge I'm seeing right now is talent, is hiring the right people and having the right people in roles. And so as a leader, to be able to drive predictable and increasing growth, which is growing, increasing growth in their business, you need to have the right people around you so you can lead through them. Because the trap in mid-sized businesses is that the person at the top is probably the best salesperson. Yeah. And if they're trying to do it all, it won't be predictable. There might be lumpy, really exciting big deals that the board gets very excited about, but there won't be that predictable, repeatable revenue growth. And I think that's the biggest challenge for leaders.
Yeah, that's really true. You've got no chance of driving real scale in a business unless you can get yourself out of the way, right? So,
And it's so hard.
yeah,
It's so hard. And especially in the last 2 years, because I bet every single person on this call who's a leader in March 2020 pulled right down to day to day. This account's not happening. This is thing. Here's the cash in the bank today. That was important then. It was right for the moment leadership. But as we've all accommodated to a changing world, I think leaders are now starting to really be more intentional about how they're going to engage with their leadership teams and how they're going to lead the business.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I see the same problem with many scale-up businesses that I work with, where the magic of the founder, their own personal belief in what they do and the way they can carry a conversation will often earn them some business. But then they think, great, now's just time to hire sales and marketing people, but they haven't earned the right to be success by being really clear about product market fit and ideal customer profile and the buyer personas they sell to, and really nailing the messaging. Because the biggest trap for anybody in business or a seller is being good enough to generate interest, but it doesn't actually translate through to them becoming a customer. It's a very expensive way to fail. So, hey, I really like that. Talk me through your approach to forecasting for a board. I know for the leaders that are watching this, and for everyone who's a salesperson here, the biggest point of stress often for your boss and the people above you is those numbers you're passing up. You know, it's not a game. People take forecasting very serious at senior levels. So what's your approach to forecasting when you work with your board?
Yeah, really good question. And there's something also about boards. CEOs really have to be on their game for the board, and reporting to the board is critical. That's the CEO's boss. Yet, I think as a leader, it's critical that you don't drive that stress into the business. And a number of times I've said, the board's not running this business, we are. Well, we need to do this because the board wants this or the board wants that. So I think as a leader, it's been that's another responsibility. Find a peer who's got the same issue, find another CEO to talk to. So how do we forecast? And we actually really honed this skill over the last 2 years. I brought in a new COO who did a great job with this. What's the lever that's driving revenue? Fine. And it turned out for us, it was something that was just, we hardly even looked at. It was a particular metric that we could then factor in. We built a model around this metric. And as a result, our forecasting is accurate to the dollar. My finance guy loves it. And, end of month, how do we say we're going to go? How do we go? And prior to that, we were just the best at lag indicators ever. I could report the news beautifully. As long as it was 2.5 weeks after the end of month, I could tell you how we went while you're already sort of in the middle of this month. So I think it's find the metric that matters. And of course, like anything, test, retest, and I guess that's what we've done prior to getting it right. But if you can nail that and then put your numbers in around it, you can forecast revenue really well.
Deeper there, what are those forward-looking metrics rather than the rear view ones that make that difference? And how far out are you then discovering that you were dead accurate? Is that like maybe 6 weeks out from the end of a quarter, or how do you do your forecasting?
Yeah, so for revenue forecast for the overall business, for us, our customers are our members.
Yes.
So we know how many existing customers we have, how many existing members. We know when a new member joins from a revenue perspective, when it's going to hit. So again, from a salesperson, I've joined a member, I've brought in a new customer, that's great, but it's once they start paying when it's going to hit the revenue. So that's been a critical metric for us to understand within what time period between joining and actually commencing paying, what is that time period that's critical for us, and it's 30 days. So we put a metric around that throughout the whole business, and everyone knows that. The other one that, as far as the model we could build what our revenue looked like, was the average rate of a member, the average rate per member per month. And that goes up and down for different reasons. Someone might be on maternity leave, and so their membership rate changes. So just what we found was that one metric, the average rate per member, captured who wasn't paying, who was on leave, who had signed up but hadn't started yet. So all the things that drove success in the business, it turned out after some testing, captured in that one metric. So the business at the SLT and at the salesperson level has a whole lot of other specific metrics that all feed up into that one.
Wow, wow. And that's the holy grail in a business model, really, is this annuity-based, predictable, scaling, compound growth curve of revenue, right? So because when you win a new client, you're adding revenue on top of the compound growth curve of those membership subscriber bases as well. Yeah.
Right. And the challenge for us compared with other businesses, I can remember it was 2013 and I was flying out to Europe that day and we closed a deal, significant. I think it was about it was $900,000. That revenue dropped into that year. So it was just fantastic. It was like, got the deal, we're off, happy holidays. That can't happen in my business because I could, on the last day of June, sign up 500 new members.
Yeah.
But it's not going to hit my revenue until the next month. So the next year. So it's also understanding the cadence of your business and then driving your sales team with that cadence, because just big hero surprises don't really work for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, for those watching this, Steph's business, the Executive Connection, is really a membership business, but you also get some of the best speakers in the world, and we will go back to live speakers. So people like Jim Collins, who are good to great and built to last, and you've had him as a speaker.
Tony Hughes, even,
Thank you, but obviously moving a business from an events-based business to a membership-based business, that's what everybody's seeking to do. So obviously for leaders watching this, that's really the key, is how do we build annuity compound revenue growth, right? Rather than spikes of revenue.
Yeah.
Hey, Steph, let's go to something else. How would you describe the sales culture within the Executive Connection?
So 7.5, coming up for 8 years in July. When I walked in, because it's a membership organization and our mentors are retired CEOs, business leaders, there was a certain approach to selling. And I remember on about my third day, I went, this is a sales problem. But the tricky thing was that word sales was filthy. I'm not salesy. I'm not salesy. Oh, you're a bit salesy. And I'd always take that as, oh, thank you. Thank you very much. So it was a massive change. And again, I remember saying a few things in meetings about sales. We need to be thinking about sales. And then I just thought in my head, this is transformational change. I thought this was just easy. We've come a long, long way. So our sales culture is founded in the belief that every single person has in our organization in the purpose, which is about changing the lives of business leaders and business owners and making them more effective. And because everyone truly believes in that, that from me throughout the whole organization, and absolutely with the board and even with our shareholders, the belief is that people are better off in than out. Everyone I meet, I think, well, if you're in tech, you wouldn't have those problems, but it's not that simple. So everyone believes that. So I think the culture is about growth and growth in membership. From the inside sales team, what we've grown is a hungry, driven, engaged sales team who look and feel, especially now, I think I've got the best sales team at the moment that I've had. Before I had a superstar who's on maternity leave, and since we've actually built up a very, very strong team as a whole. And I think you could pick up that team and put them into something more traditionally in sales, and I hope they're not watching now. But but they kind of get the wrapper around it of what we're doing is we're working with CEOs and business founders. So just kind of slapdash or cheesy or following a script is never going to work.
And Steph, the thing I love about what you just shared is it's very much a purpose-driven sales culture. Because I've always believed that selling is about making a positive difference in the lives of others. It's not about us, earning enough commission to go buy a Porsche or crushing quota or killing the competition. It is all about helping other people. So having a purpose-driven sales culture is really important. Yet people also need hustle. And hey, I'm just seeing a few comments come through. So Scott and Derek, I think you had some problems with LinkedIn Live, or not that you were the problem with LinkedIn Live. The LinkedIn Live platform can be a little buggy. So I can see that you've logged back in. Frank, I can see your question as well. I'll definitely make sure that I ask Stephanie that question as we come up. So Steph, when you think about sales culture and then bringing the right people into the team, what are the skills and qualities that you look for in a seller or a sales leader?
In my context, business acumen is important. You talk about the language of leaders. If someone says, well, we're looking at our funding options, is it bootstrapping, and we're going to go the VC route or whatever, they need to actually broadly understand what that means.
Yes.
Or at least the context of it. They have to understand a family business versus a corporate or even a publicly listed. So that commercial acumen is very important. And for any seller anywhere, listening, it sounds kind of obvious, but listening. So someone who, and how I can see the evidence of that is when I'm hearing from a salesperson about a prospective customer, or in our case, a prospective member, and I get a feel for who that person really is.
Yeah.
And what they're really, again, what's really keeping them awake at night. And I get that feeling. For me, it's sort of a test. If a salesperson is telling me about someone and I can't remember their name or their position or their state a day later, they haven't actually sold me that they're selling. So that listening, being able to synthesize information and rule out what's important and what's not. Again, a sort of a version of they love me is oh, he's a lovely man. He's a lovely guy. Or she's really lovely. And it's kind of like, well, great. But that's only a little bit, not what's important. So discernment, that's the word, a discernment to be able to listen and think about what they're hearing and synthesize that into an important view of their prospective customer.
This is really gold for any leader that's watching this. So I really agree with you. We need people that have a level of business or commercial acumen. They need to be genuinely curious about the other person and ask great questions. And Steph, I really agree with you. The thing that used to make my head explode with sellers is they'd come back into the office and they'd say, I had a great meeting. It was a great meeting. It went really well. We got a really, it was all really good. Great. Why was it a great meeting beyond we all seem to like each other?
That's right.
What's the next step? What are they going to do to advance the processes as a result of the time together? And often you just get a blank stare, right? So if the seller's not creating real progression, that's obviously really a problem. So, hey, let's maybe pivot the conversation for salespeople and maybe give them some tips on how to engage a senior person like yourself. And you have lots of conversations with other leaders within the tech community. So you obviously get a lot of war stories from them. But maybe just before we do that, there's a question in here from Frank who asks, what do you think the impact of the new virtual world has done to forming those deep trusted relationships with your key people?
Prior to COVID, there I said it, I didn't want to. Prior to March 2020, all of our sales conversations were over the phone. My team had deep conversations with the people who are on this call over the phone, and they still do. And in fact, they found, I remember going on to meet a couple of prospective members face to face, and it didn't work because our conversations are about someone being really, really open about themselves and their business and their fears and their aspirations, and face to face or even on Zoom, it just, funnily enough, wrecked that dynamic. So we were already over the phone. I think I've found all along, and Tony, you and I have met face to face and we've spoken a lot like this, the connection's exactly the same.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think for salespeople, think about what the connection is. If you're only relying on face to face, well, think about why. What is it that you're doing?
Yeah.
And trust me, if it's got to be face to face because I'm going to walk into a room with a business leader and open my laptop and do a demonstration, think of another way of selling. Because the joke in my team is always when a salesperson, a tech salesperson, technology salesperson come in and do that, and my senior projects guy sometimes say, "You've got 2 minutes," and she's out of this room. And it was always kind of a joke. He'd either say it or he'd look at me and go, "You must be about to leave." So where I'm coming to, I believe that the art of selling can happen in any environment, wherever you need to be. It's just being intentional and considered about what the process is that you're going through, and be curious about who you're engaging with. And I believe that it can happen remotely as well as face to face.
To support what you're saying, Steph, I was having a conversation a couple of weeks ago with Bridget Archibald. She's actually been on this show previously. Yeah. Bridget's the CEO of Qualtrics, and big software organization. So she's the CEO of Asia Pacific and Japan. She said to me that she loves the way that we're working and selling today. She said she's been able to get into the homes of customers and staff. She's in their home, and one of the kids will walk past in the background, and she'll actually say, "Oh, yeah, hello," and she'll engage their kids, or she'll hear their dog bark. "Oh, what sort of dog have you got?" Like, it's amazing how this gives us an opportunity to actually take engagement to a whole new level. And for all of us watching, the big challenge is, how do you get the person on the other end, if you're doing a Zoom call or something like that, or a Teams call, how do you get them to turn their camera on? Because we know that if someone's doing email in the background, with their camera off and half listening, you're not really engaged at all. So driving engagement is the trick. But I agree with you. We can drive engagement in a world of remote selling, and we can build emotional connection with our staff and partners and customers. But get them to turn their camera on and comment about their home, their background, their dog. I got one person I was talking to, and the cat walked across the screen. Having a talk about that. So what I found is people are selling from home. They're actually becoming more real and authentic.
I absolutely agree with that part, because people come to it from real. I'm just watching as the gloomy light sets in, I'm thinking any salesperson out there has got a good ring light, I'm in. Yeah. I think it's that people are just coming from one context to another. It feels weird now when I go into the office, because it feels like a kind of a change in you, almost, that you're not just still the continuous self that you've been all morning getting ready for work.
Yeah, and I think for all of the leaders that are here with us and all of the sellers, everything that's happened in the last 2 years has been a catalyst for accelerating this thing they call the fourth industrial revolution. Yeah. We do live in a digital first world. Things will never go fully back to how they used to be. So remote selling and getting better at embracing technology is increasingly important. So Steph, let's talk about some advice for salespeople. What's the best way for a seller who does not know you yet? What's the best way for them to engage with you successfully?
So I thought about this because I knew this was coming, and I had a whole lot of the best ways not to. And I thought, come on, people say I must, I spend money all the time. There must be something, so I've got it. There's two ways. One is so old school. It's get to my EA and have a good conversation with her. Really old school.
Yeah.
But the other one that works every time for me is a referral from someone I know. I have a very big network because of my members, my all the experts around the world that we work with, my global network, and my own LinkedIn. Not a patch on yours, Tony, but I know 15. I have 15,000 contacts on LinkedIn. So you will find someone who knows me. And
Yeah.
I was saying to you the other day, if I get an email from a trusted, valued person in my network introducing me to someone, I owe it to that partner to
Yes.
actually reply. So I'll take phone calls that in another life I really don't need. I'd have meetings, and in the olden days, probably a coffee with someone that I wouldn't necessarily. But if they've been referred to me, it's a given. I mean, I often get referrals from people saying, I just think you two need to meet. I get a lot of that. Here's some, I just think you two need to meet. And I don't even know what it's about, but I'll meet that person. Because I think it's easier to sell to a CEO than it is to sell further down the line.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I've actually got more time, strangely enough, but I have more time, and I can decide if I take the call with you, then it means I'm interested. You've already got me on the hook. So referrals, Tony, that's the best way to get to me.
Wow, Steph, that's just gold for everybody listening to this. And I just want to add a few things. Steph just made the comment that she thinks it's easier for you as a seller to sell to the CEO rather than down in the organization. And I agree with her 100%. The thing we all need to be aware of is that the people in the middle levels and lower levels of an organization, they have to do all of the work and take on all of the stress and the risk and get out of their personal comfort zone to drive change in an organization. So the junior middle people don't really want change. It's just a whole lot of work and risk.
Yeah.
But the senior people, the purpose of their existence is to drive positive change. And every board in the world in the last 2 years has been thinking, how do we use this craziness in the world to drive positive change, to emerge from all of this stronger than competition? This is a once in a lifetime opportunity to change our business model. Everyone's embracing change. So I really agree. And the other thing that Stephanie said that is so true, and almost every CEO I've had on the show has said this. I remember Simon Tate, the CEO for Adobe within this region of the world. He said that trusted common connection is absolutely the path. And it's true. If someone rang me and said, hey, Tony, Steph Christopher thought that, you and I should have a chat, I'm in. Now, you could maybe unget your meeting when I ask, well, why?
Yeah.
But Steph, just as an example, just this week, because we're all crazy busy, I sent an email to 2 CEOs, and it was just one sentence. You two need to get together for dinner, right? I think there's real synergies in the 2 businesses. And I just sent it. I didn't explain why or what it was about. Now, I talked to them individually the week before, but it wasn't this long-winded, rambling summary of everything. It was just, you two need to meet. So I absolutely agree with you. That's
and I guess what doesn't work for me, because it's so crowded, it might have worked years ago, but just a unsolicited email and then clunky follow-ups, sort of getting more and more desperate. Just putting this at the top of your email, or I haven't heard from you, or you're obviously not interested. Calling me Steph when I don't know them from Adam.
Yes.
It's just like that. An over familiarity.
Yeah.
Unsolicited. I don't even read what they're saying, and it could be something really good, but that doesn't hit me. I like him. I don't have a problem with emails. I read my emails too, quite. But those ones just flick straight through.
Yeah, that is such great advice. And for everyone to respect the EA of a person, right? Sell to them first. If you treat them like the gatekeeper and just try and get around them, they're all good and they're paid to protect the time of their boss, and they'll find a way to head you off at the pass. So if you're engaging with an EA, if that's what you end up doing, treat them like you're selling to the CEO, because they really do control the calendar. So Steph, what are the best channels and the best time of day to break through to you and, in your opinion, to CEOs generally?
And I might go against the grain here. It's actually during the workday. I'm just going to try and close this curtain, see if that's better.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, much better. We don't need to see the outside of Sydney here today. I'm better in my workday. So, however, a couple of things. If it's an email introduction, get me at the crack of dawn, because I do what everyone would tell you not to do. I wake up and scroll and sort through all of that. So if it's an email, that's fine. I'll just get to it when I'm going to, if it's an email introduction. But if you really want my attention, it's in my workday, because
Okay.
I can juggle a whole lot of things at once. And at the end of the day, I deliberately switch off. I'm still looking, but I'm switching off from new stuff. And I'm trying to think and sort out in my head. So during the workday is the best way to get my attention.
And Steph, I agree with you. It's a common thing I hear from leaders that early in the morning, because most leaders start early, they try and get their day sorted out and get their real work done before they get constantly interrupted. So emails and in-mails in the shoulders of the day and even in the evening, I tend to find is really effective. Okay, but if they're going to phone you and wanting to engage with you, it's obviously in normal work hours for you. That's great. How often do sellers actually call you? Because I'm seeing sellers just really neglect the phone and just default to sort of digital channels.
Not that often. And I get phone calls from bad sellers.
Okay. with this disingenuous friending kind of strategy.
Well, either that or what are you talking about? Because it's so unusual to get a phone call these days. I know that's weird, but in the workday, to get a phone call that isn't, husband, daughters. Yeah. So however, having said that, my team get to speak to CEOs and business owners all day, every day.
Yeah.
And so they just call them. They might, if it's a lead, if someone comes through our lead generation channels and they leave their phone number, then they'll just give them a call. If it's a referral and there's an email, they'll book in a time with them. Or I'll have, first response rep phoning them to make an appointment to speak to a salesperson. So I think phone calls work, but boy, you've got to, as you used to have to be too, you've got to be really good in those first 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Because first thing you think is, I've got my electricity or whatever. I don't trust you. I don't know you. I don't trust you. So that's a bit tricky. So you've got to be bang straight into something really compelling.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what all the research shows. We've only got probably 7 seconds at best before the person's mentally thinking, I'm out. How do I get off the phone here? So yeah, so the thing I'm hearing is people aren't really using the phone a lot. No. So if you use it, it'll set you apart and you're likely to get some traction, but you need to make sure you nail that conversation well, right? Especially if you're talking to a leader.
Text can work. Text can actually work. Yep. Because I'd sort of rather a text than a phone call, really, because it just lets me figure through. And when I had my first one, maybe it was a year ago, my first official sales text, and I was like, is this allowed? and then I thought, this is really good. It actually has my attention and I can look back at it and think, who is that? So text sets apart. In-mails are really good for me. In-mails are good. I mean, it's busy. It's busy on LinkedIn and it's not as immediate. I probably won't check it every single day, but it gets my attention if it's genuine.
Yeah. No, that's great. So, hey, Lauren Lee, it's really good to see you in here. Thanks for the positive comments. We've got a question from Graham Flynn. Hey, Graham, I've known Graham for a long time. Legend in the IT and software industries. Graham's got a question. What are your thoughts, Steph, on selling to small businesses as we recover from the last 2 years? Anything different to selling to sort of bigger businesses?
understand what small businesses need and don't apply big corporate thinking. So
Yes.
small businesses, again, back to your language of leaders, well, everyone's language of leaders. If you're talking to a small business and you're just using big business examples, the brain's going, not for me, not for me, not for me. So it's probably a little more research, because small businesses you won't know about as much. I think of our members, and I often meet, tech members and think, how come I don't know you, or I didn't know of you? This is such, hundreds of millions of dollars you've built in this family business, and it's amazing, and I've never heard of you. So you're going to have to really, so I'd say, do your research, understand what's going on in that industry and that market, and a bit of empathy mapping. Be inside the head of that small business owner. And a few hints right now. Every single small business owner, what's in their mind is talent. Finding the right people. How can I compete with the big software giants to bring people into my organization? How can I keep up with innovation and the future and a really strong true north when I've got day-to-day stuff going on? And supply chain's a real challenge right now.
Yeah, they're all absolutely big issues for people. So, hey, Steph, we've got about 5 minutes to go. So I might just go to some rapid fire questions. When someone in your organization brings you a request to approve something, what's your sort of lens for prioritizing and approving decisions?
What value is it going to bring?
Yeah, impact,
Impact. What value is it going to bring? And then second to that, well, what's the cost of it? And what's the relevance right now? How does it fit into my plan? I've got a strategy for 1, 2, 3 years. How does it fit into that plan?
Yeah. Okay, great. Hey, just in the spirit of answering questions, Brad's got a question of me. How will the webinars like this one work? Brad, the thing that's crazy for me is I've got more clients than I can cope with. So I'm not doing this to try and generate leads. I'm doing this just to try and give back. But it's obviously really strong from a branding point of view. And at Sales IQ Global, it's the same thing. We've got lots of amazing content that we really give away. So content-based marketing, really try and pay it forward is a very powerful thing. I know that the Executive Connection do the same thing. People go, wow, and this is just incredible content. I really should join the community. And that's what we find at Sales IQ Global as well. The other thing we decided to do is, although we're using StreamYard because they're a great platform to produce with, and we get evergreen content that we put up at Sales IQ Global, so people go and can see these later. So for those that had problems with the LinkedIn Live streaming today, you can see the whole recording done in StreamYard, which was pushing it out to LinkedIn Live later. But if you create those kinds of assets, you'll absolutely create really strong following. And the reason we push it to LinkedIn Live is it honors the principle of go and be where your audience is, rather than expecting them to come to you. So, hey, Steph, I might just wrap us up with this last question that I ask everybody. If you could go back in time and meet the 25-year-old you, what advice would you give yourself?
Okay. Don't ever settle for second best. Don't ever settle for less than your worth in business or personal. Remember, I'm only 25 in business or personal.
Yeah.
The second one would be, your potential. Inside, you know how good you could be. So don't wait. Go for it now. Take more risks. Do it now. And the third one's a new one for me, Tony, and I wish I knew it at 25. Don't ever dim your light to fit in with people around you. Don't ever dim your light to make senior people or people around you comfortable or unthreatened. If you don't fit in, you're never going to fit in, but don't worry about it. But don't diminish who you are to that end, because number one, it doesn't work, and you're not really being yourself.
That's amazing advice. I really love that. Yeah, we all need to be true believers, in what it is that, that we offer the world, and who we associate ourselves with has a massive bearing on how things end up for us. So Steph, thank you so much. What's the best way for people to go and find you? I'm assuming that the Executive Connection would be the best website to go to have a look.
Absolutely. Go to the website. That's the best way. And in fact, I will give my email address. So stephanie.christopher@techtec.com.au.
Great. And we've got the website for Tech at the bottom here in the banner, so you can go there. So
and link in with me. I'll see you on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely connect in LinkedIn. Do the same with me. Obviously, connect with me in LinkedIn. And I really encourage you to go to the Sales IQ Global website. You'll find recordings of other interviews with CEOs from the CEO Sales Insight Show. So thanks for joining us today, and thank you so much, Steph, for being on the show. Thanks,
Loved
everyone.
it. Thanks, Tony. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.